Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, it is the very best time of year. It is the time to start putting unrealistic expectations on people who were in high school just a matter of weeks ago. The very best to you and yours this unrealistic expectation season.
100%. And now that we have spring football dates, the spring game is April 18th. The camp opens on March 10th. When we say this year, we mean 2026. All right, let's last year is 2025. Let's just make sure that we've moved on. We're on the same wavelength, and I'm just wanted to get that out there. But today's show is based on a poll question that I put on Twitter. Some national writers would call this a scientific query, and then be called out by the Big Ten commissioner for that scientific research.
That's quite a stew you're working on there, Tony. That I don't know what you're cooking up, but it sounds scandalous.
So the question I posed on Twitter was, how many games are you expecting Chris Henry Jr. to start in 2026? The options: 0, 1 to 3, 4 to 8, 9 plus. And Tom, I don't. How do I want you to do this? Tell me what percentage of the voters said 9 plus.
9 plus.
Survey says.
Yeah, survey says. Yeah. We've got the top 4 answers on the board. 9 plus feels like that's probably about the second highest. I think that the whatever 4 to 8 or something like that. I think that's probably going to be the highest number. But I'm going to say 9 plus is about 20 to 25% of people.
Wow, Tom. 9 plus in this survey, 53.6% of those surveyed believe that he is going to start.
A very happy season to you and yours.
These are the kind of expectations that Chris Henry Jr. is coming to Ohio State with. Now, I also ran this poll on the Buckeye Huddle message board, and the numbers are much less pressure being put on him by the Buckeye Huddle faithful than the Twitter faithful, which also, as we know, has members of the fringe, the lunatic fringe in there. 9 plus is a lot, and it has been done by Jeremiah Smith and I'm going to say Chris Carter, because even David Boston in 1996 didn't starting until the second half of the season. Mm-hmm. So, Tom, with that 53.6%, that leaves, say, 50-some percent remaining. What percentage? Yes? You have something to say?
No, I'm just, say 53%, so it leaves 47%, and I'm just trying to decide if I want to say anything lower than 45% for the 4 to 8, and I'm not sure that I do. It feels like there's a very specific trend developing here. I will say that I'll say that there are 30% of people who think 4 to 8.
Yes, 29.4% of people say 4 to 8. So you're talking like 83, 84% of people saying that Chris Henry Jr. is going to start between 4 and 16 games, basically. And again, this is the opportunity there, sure, but it's just a lot. And now we'll finish this up, Tom. What percentage do you think said 1 to 3 games for Chris Henry Jr.?
Okay, so we're at 40 or 53 and almost 30, so like 83%. Mm-hmm. So I'll say that 13% said 1 to 3 and 4% said 0.
Pretty close. It is 11.5, 1 to 3, 5.6 said 0. And I guess we should put ourselves in here as well, because outside of Jeremiah Smith, when you talk about receiver starts, you are talking about Julian Fleming in the 2020 Big Ten championship game. You are talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. in the 2022 Rose Bowl, and you're talking about Carnell Tate and the 2024 Cotton Bowl or 2023 Cotton Bowl, perhaps. So not a lot there. And Garrett Wilson, by the way, 0 starts in 2019 as part of that rotation. So me, I'd put myself into 1 to 3 just to cover myself in case there's just, a random need. I think 4 to 8, I think anything over that, to me, I would not put that on him until I see something out of him in the spring.
Yeah, I think the responsible answer here is 0, although I'm totally okay with 1 to 3 just because it does sort of happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people picked up the trend there, but the trend there is a lot of times this happens when people opt out. And if Ohio State is not in the college football playoff, I'm not expecting Jeremiah Smith to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl or whatever Ohio State ends up in if they don't make the playoff. But other than that, it's a lot of, it doesn't happen very often. And so I personally, on our board, I voted 0. I saw this right when it started, and I voted 0, and then I have not gone back and checked the results because I knew we were going to do this show. But I think 0 is the most likely outcome, followed closely by 1 to 3, where it happens. But this is not an Ohio State team that is desperately short on wide receivers. This is not the 2021 secondary where Denzel Burke is starting, but boy, does that say a lot about the other guys in that room. I think this is a wide receiver unit that is going to be, between the guys they brought in and the guys they have returning, this is going to be a very talented receiver group. So this is going to be something where Chris Henry's going to have to earn his spot. This is not going to be there's sort of default start. I don't think that's going to be the case for him. So I think 0. I'm totally fine with the people who say 0. I'm totally fine with the people who say 1 to 3. I think the people who are saying more than that, or very definitively expecting way more than that, are looking at Jeremiah Smith and not really appreciating what an outlier Jeremiah Smith is.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at the poll on our board, and this seems much more under control. 16.5% of the people said 0. 28.7 said 1 to 3. 28.7 said 4 to 8. And 26.1 said 9 plus. And I think that's certainly more realistic. I still think if they get 9 plus starts out of Chris Henry Jr., then that's great and all. But for me, I still want to see it. And we slow played Jeremiah Smith a little bit last year until we saw him in the spring, and then it was like, yeah, whatever. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Not putting any limits on him. But with Chris Henry Jr., I'm not ready to do that. Two out of the last 3 years, and just based on from what I've seen of him, like I don't think he is Jeremiah Smith. That's that's not a slap in the face. Like again, look at all of the players, the talented, unbelievable receivers that started or played at Ohio State. Emeka Egbuka never started as a true freshman. We don't even need to get into the guys who redshirted. Michael Thomas redshirted in year 3 of his career. So like there's all kinds of Tom. Me saying 0 to 3 starts, 1 to 3 starts, or 0 starts. Promise you that's not an insult. Same for you.
No, it's absolutely not. And I think you also have to remember Chris Henry is, by some ratings, not even the highest rated wide receiver in this year's Ohio State freshman class. And Chris Henry is the guy who sort of slots in most neatly at the same position that Jeremiah Smith does, where maybe the path of the field at the Z receiver position for Jaquaden Guilford might be a little more clear than it is for Chris Henry at the X. And if Chris Henry's one of the best 3, he'll play. They're not going to be concerned about hurting anyone's feelings. If he's one of the best guys, he's going to play. I think it would just be smart for everyone to wait and pump the brakes and keep the expectations reasonable until we get a chance to watch a little bit of spring ball. I mean, believe me, we will tell you if this is go back and listen to the first practice report from the 2019 spring ball, and you'll hear Tony and I talking about the explosiveness of Garrett Wilson in practice, just getting in and out of his breaks and how it just looks different. Like, we'll let you know. 2020, Jackson Smith and Jigba had a catch on the sideline in practice one, right before the world ended in 2020. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a catch or two that you'll hear us talk, blown away what he looks like. And Jeremiah Smith in 2024, same thing. Like, we will let you know. I think it just, the smartest, safest approach to take right now is pump the brakes. Let's wait and see. I think there's a lot of talent there, but there's a lot of, there have been a lot of talented wide receivers at Ohio State over the years who have not been multi-game starters or even 400-yard receivers, let alone 1,000-yard receivers as true freshmen. That's if Tony has a list that he uses every year basically to sort of set the over-under for what is a good expectation for like a good for true freshman season for a wide receiver. And everyone is always thinking, oh, I don't know, 600 yards, would that be a disappointment? And you look at the list and it's like virtually no one breaks 300 yards. And if you said 300 yards for Chris Henry right now, everyone would call you a lunatic and a hater. And it's like, this is the historical norm, even for very good receivers as true freshmen. So, I think Jeremiah Smith has just sort of broken the scale. He is the curve wrecker for Ohio State wide receivers in terms of what a true freshman season should look like.
The wide receiver nerd. You mentioned the 300 yards. Here's a list as true freshmen: Ted Ginn, Garrett Wilson, David Boston, Chris Carter, Jeremiah Smith. The only guys to go over 500 yards: Chris Carter and Jeremiah Smith. So.
And think about the names that he didn't say there.
Yeah.
I mean, guys that were Jackson Smith and Jigba. I know it was 2020, but Jackson Smith and Jigba had 49 yards as a true freshman, and is now maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, this is Marvin Harrison barely played his true freshman year, had a big Rose Bowl, and still didn't finish with very many yards. It is just. It is something that I think people just really just kind of have lost sight of, and it's hard to have this conversation without sounding like you're hating on him, and it's just like, no, believe me, we are very optimistic about his future at Ohio State. We're just trying to keep the expectations in line with reality.
100%. So there you go. Just wanted to talk about that and share that poll for you all. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. 5-star rating and review on all of the podcast platforms that you use, also appreciated. And you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com talking about this and many, many other things. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.